that totally. It's like that every year. Y buenos días, muy buenos días. Feliz lunes. Ah, bienvenidos y bienvenidas. Espero que ustedes estén bien. I hope you guys are well. Hoy vamos a practicar, vamos a hablar de cosas así. ¿Hay alguna pregunta de algo en la tarea? Por favor, díganme. Yeah? So definitely pipe up and tell me when we come to the various segments when you have a question. We're going to start with the um, video review today, a review of the video from last week, and then we're going to move on to a quick uh, um, a quick review of detecting when past words will seep in and what they're likely to be, and then our little practice. So that's how I have it lined up, para que sepan, so that you guys know. Okay, vamos a empezar con preguntas. I did give you, I hope, a helpful list of vocabulary so that you have that on hand for this particular video. Um, oop, hand gestures, it does not like that. Stop it, camera. Okay. Aquí vamos. Here we go. Sí, este video que que se trata de una historia del café, de la cita de café. This was our coffee number two video in the series. This was the harder coffee date
Mhm.
video, but it did have a mix of some things, and I hope you were able to notice when things switched to past. But I do want to know if you have any questions about vocabulary that she used that wasn't maybe on my list, or a structure that you're like, why did she say that? ¿Hay alguna pregunta? Is there any kind of question on that you noted or not? Or no? Okay. Fue, ah, ah, no fue totalmente fácil. This wasn't like totally super easy, but I hope it was easier with the list of vocab that I gave, that was helpful.
Mhm.
Sí, bien,
Yes.
ok, vale. Y bien, y se trataba de, se trataba de, el vídeo se trataba de am, las dificultades de pedir café especial, ah, como café artesanal, kind of like you've got artisan bread, artisan beers, artisan coffee, all those special coffees. Ok, bien, vale. Como no hay ninguna pregunta, as there is no question there, we're going to seg straight into, and
Marilyn,
oh, perdón, ¿sí?
I have a general question. A lot of times, I think I have the basic principle, but when you try to put it into action, a lot of times some of them are very equivocal to me. Is there some flexibility in which term, which whether you use preterite or um, imperfect, or is it really hard and fast?
Oh, I'm sorry. Again, what your question is about? Which?
The question is the theory behind the difference, I understand, I believe. But when I try to put it into practice, a lot of times it's equivocal to me which one it really belongs in, which category I should be using. It's just not that clear to me in practice. Is that
Oh, it's not clear when you.
fluid? Is it fluid? I mean, will some people use one and some will use the other? In
Uh,
some cases, I mean, a lot of times it's very clear, but a lot of times it's like not so clear to me. An
okay.
argument in my mind for either imperfect or preterite.
Wasn't clear when it should go into one or the other.
Yeah.
That um, we will hope to use some of our practice time today to show why.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, is it normal for you to say, I don't feel like the flow is a natural, it's not easy to figure out whether it should be in
It's
which
easy to figure
past.
out Yes. And
Yeah.
so sometimes, but a lot of times it is not for me.
Eh, that is a super normal feeling, super normal.
Good.
So, yes. Uh, um, so the reason this is difficult is that you're dealing with not just learning a new conjugation, but when a
Chooses.
verb goes into, and all verbs have conjugations in preterite and in imperfect. So when you're speaking, is it natural to know what do I use? That is a super normal, difficult thing for English speakers. Okay. But what we're going to try, or what I'm going to try to do for you today, especially with listening. So I had you try some examples, which we'll go through those later. But I'm going to try to point out today what you can expect to hear, because as people speak to you, they will flip between all these tenses quite a lot. And that flip between present and past is one that a transition that you'll hear a lot. You can expect to hear a lot. So I want you to be able to anticipate and knowing what tense is normal yeah, this is what we're going to deal with today. Okay, we're going to get right into that today. Yay. We're going to talk about that now. So, I had given you guys this list of verbs, this file set, and uh, there are certain verbs that just pop up all the time, like the top 50. These are probably in the top 25 common verbs you will hear constantly in everyday conversation. Okay. Uh, Haber, and keep in mind this haber has more than one job in Spanish. So we're looking at solely one of its jobs, which is to talk about existence. Okay. To say that there is something or there are these things that exist that are around. And we know that verb as hay. And what we want to get used to is the past version of that because it's very common. There were or there was. So instead of I, there is, there are. How do we flip that into past? Because you will hear the past verb form of that a lot. Haber, so let me show you. Haber is one of those verbs, Julie. You're going to hear haber mostly in imperfecto.
Yeah.
You are likely 90% of the time, 90% of the time, if people use that in the past, that particular verb, 90% of the time you're going to hear it as imperfecto. Okay? Uh, there is a past, there is a preterite version of it, but it applies in very limited circumstances. Okay. I'm going to talk to you about how you can tell, because for the English speaking brain, this is not obvious. Okay. I'm going to put haber up as our prime example here of how to tell. Uh, it's the nature of what we have to think about. What's the nature of the action of that verb? Sometimes some verbs will tend to be used more heavily in the past in preterite or in imperfect. And the way you tell is by what is the action. If the action is, and here the action isn't really an action. There are, talks about a state of being. Yeah. And long ago in third grade, you had classes on, to be is a state of being verb. Haber is like to be. It is a state of being verb. And because it does not deal with an event, most of the time. You will tend to hear this nice big red había 90% of the time. So you can just put it in your hip pocket that if I want to talk about I, the way to flip that into the past is just that one word. This is the easiest thing in the world. To flip it into the past, it's going to be había 90% of the time because it talks about a state of being. Here is the 10% of the time that falls out of that nice, comfortable, cushiony place. Hubo is the past form, the preterite past form, preterito. It is not used as frequently in conversation. Why not? Because preterite revolves around events that have a clear beginning and a clear end. What is the nature? Why do we have that tense called preterito? It is for things that happened and boom, they happened. They're clearly over with, done, clear, event oriented. Okay. Very, very infrequently do we need to use that with haber. We need to use it for events like an accident. Uh, a wedding is an event. A meeting that you had is an event. Maybe, like we have this with this example of hubo un accidente, right? Uh, Maybe a storm that hit suddenly. That would be an event. But that's not what we use in most of our conversational use for that verb haber. Most of the time, we want to say, uh, uh, there were a lot of dog walkers out in the park this morning. There were a lot of people walking their dogs. That's not an event, it's a scene that you see. Okay? Imperfecto has a job. Imperfecto's job is to paint a picture of what you see, to show the setting, to set the scene. Its job is to talk about repeated events over and over and over, things that happened a lot, but we don't really know how many times, you know? Like if you want to say, my grandma always used to tell me, that happened a lot, right? Grandma always used to say, abuela decía, that would be imperfecto. But most of the time, you'll say, Grandma said, take out the trash. That just came out of her mouth. Boom. That's preterite. It's an event. It happened once. Okay. Preterite's job is to talk about what happened once, something that clearly started and ended. Okay. Imperfecto paints a picture of a scene. Okay. The nature of the action of this verb, haber, is to talk about a state of being. That's not an event. It's something that happened. There were. I don't really know when it started and I don't know when it ended. So it's going to take that imperfecto use 90% of the time for most chit chat that we use it in. So moving from present to past, you can you can predict 90% of the time we're going to move from I to había.
Hey,
I,
Marilyn,
oh yeah. Sí.
I have a question about that. So, if you said there were a lot of clouds, but if you said there were a lot of clouds yesterday, would that change anything? Because then it was an event
So let
yesterday.
me ask you this. Did those Is that a description in the past?
Yes.
Say there were a lot of clouds yesterday. Is that a description?
Yes.
Then it's imperfecto.
Oh.
The
Oh.
job of imperfecto is description. And that's why it's, yeah,
Oh,
it's description. It's description.
interrupt.
That's the
I can't-
job of that tense.
Marilyn, a
See,
question. If you said there were a lot of clouds yesterday in the afternoon, does it make any difference?
At 2 o'clock
Zero the time frame.
in the
it's still
afternoon.
description. It's still, yeah, I know. See, and we can get like very tied up in this. So, let me tell you this. If somebody flips into if the speaker, because your job now is to recognize, right? Not to necessarily choose to speak everything perfectly, but to listen and hear and understand that they're talking about what was rather than what is, right? That's our job right now. That's your job. If the speaker chooses to go into preterito, they are sending you a signal that this thing kind of came on suddenly. It happened once. It's clearly over, or they're telling you description. And when you get into things about weather, about the weather, yeah, weather, most of the time we are in descriptive mode. So if somebody chooses to use imperfecto, they're being descriptive. Most of our chit chat about the weather is descriptive. Once in a while, we, when we talk about the weather, we want to signal that something happened or came on, like all of a sudden. And then they're going to switch into preterito. I'm going to
Okay.
show you some examples of that. Okay?
Is this like a monsoon? Would that be a monsoon came on?
Yeah.
That
Like
would
a
be
downpour. Yeah.
preterite.
Okay.
Yes.
So if I want to say there were a lot of clouds at 2 o'clock yesterday, I know, but clouds aren't really an event. They're a description of what it looked like. Yeah. But if somebody means to say uh, uh, the clouds moved in, yeah, like in a monsoon, like something came in real fast, they may switch into preterito mode to put your mindset in like, oh, this came on all of a sudden. So the speaker will choose, I'm describing for you, imperfecto, or boom, this moved in like all of a sudden, preterito, event. Yeah, they're going to choose. All verbs have both an imperfecto form and a preterito form. But for certain verbs, one tense is more likely in conversation than the other. It does not mean the other verb cannot be used in that tense. I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to add on to this slide. Because we're talking about weather, it's a very good illustration. It's a very good illustration. So let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at hacer. And I'm going to actually put this into a separate file later on when it's easier for me to do that. For example, this exists both with an imperfecto and a preterito form. You can conjugate this both ways. So let's take a look. Hacer is often used with weather. Okay. So we'll start with present. If we're talking about things right now, I can say hace sol. Literally, it makes sun, but this is an idiomatic thing with weather, right? Hace is a special verb because it means both to make and to do. And hace is a verb that, or hacer is a verb that happens to be used with many, many, many weather expressions. Hace sol, it's sunny. Hace frío, it's cold, right? Hace calor, it's hot. These are all talk about weather conditions. But presente is for now, right? Presente means this is what the weather is like right now. But it's very descriptive, isn't it? So if I'm talking about describing the weather to you in the past, I'm going to try to make this a little bit bigger because I know some of you look in on a tablet. And on a tablet, it'll be easier if I make it bigger. Okay. If I were to just tell you about what the weather was like uh, um, yesterday, I would tend to say, well, that's descriptive, so it's going to have to be imperfecto. So hacer is an ER verb. It gets ia endings. And this is only conjugated in that third person singular. So it's going to be hacía, hacía, hacía sol. It was sunny. Hacía frío. Okay. Hacía calor. Okay. If it's descriptive, if the intent of the communicating is descriptive, then we need imperfecto. Okay. Let me take, you will not hear this used a lot. You might hear it used once in a while in preterite. If you do, it'll sound like this. Hizo. I know that looks weird. H-I-Z. Where does a Z come from? Preterite is problematic for learning conjugations because it has many, many irregular verbs in Spanish. Preterite is just that way. Imperfecto is very regular and very easy to always get it right in terms of conjugation. Preterite is tough because there are a lot of irregular forms, and hacer happens to be one of them. Okay. A ver, let's take a look at another weather verb. Okay. We talk a lot about rain. Llover, to rain, right? Okay. It has both an imperfecto and a preterito form. So imperfecto, it's an ER verb. It's going to get ia endings, and it rains. I don't rain. We don't rain. So it can only be that third person singular. Llovía, llovía means it was raining. If I am describing, if somebody chooses to put that into the form of llovía, they're painting a picture for you of what it was like. Even if it was yesterday. Llovía, it was raining. And if I say llovía mucho, imperfecto, because it's descriptive, the listener kind of thinks you're going to add something on to it. Because the nature is, because it's descriptive, they're expecting even more information, possibly, to come out. So, por ejemplo, I'll give you an example of that. Llovía mucho, así que los niños, perdón, I need my keyboard to be in the right mode. Así que los niños estaban en casa todo el día. It was raining, so the kids were at home, and the implication is inside, indoors, right? All day. Bien? So because I'm saying llovía mucho, people are kind of expecting, oh, you're going to add on and tell me what was going on or what happened or some extra information. And here's the extra information. Kids were inside, a consequence of that description. Okay? Uh, that is imperfecto, llovía. But llover can also have a pretérito form. And it is a regular verb. ER verbs get for it rained to llovió. Llovió. It rained. Now, if somebody chooses to use that, they're making a statement of what happened and they're telling you done. They're telling you, well, this is nice and I'm going to put it in this little box. It's over with. And I maybe don't have a whole lot more to add on. So somebody might ask, what was the weather like yesterday? And somebody may just say, llovió ayer or llovió mucho. It rained a lot. And then that might be kind of the end. It could stand by itself. Pretérito says it's over and done. Okay? Or, or preterite is about beginnings and endings, or a beginning and end. That's all encompassed in a neat little box. Here's how else somebody may choose to use pretérito for that verb of to rain. They might say, they might choose to signal the starting point of that rain, or specifically when it happened at a specific time. Llovió, llovió, llovió a las dos. It rained at 2 o'clock. So what they're telling you is, I'm not going to describe and connect something else to this. I'm just going to tell you when it began. Sometimes a Java pretérito, besides telling you over and done with, is a starting point. Pretérito is about beginnings and endings and putting something in a neat box and telling you that something happened and we know exactly when. So a speaker chooses to use pretérito to signal, I'm going to tell you about a beginning or an ending or a clearly over and done with. Or they choose to use imperfecto to say, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what it was like and what else was going on at that time. I'm going to choose to tell you a mini portion of a story. Imperfecto is part of the storytelling process when I want to paint a picture. Llover can live in both of those worlds. Haber has a hard time living in both of those worlds because it's about state of being. It's more descriptive in nature. Okay. Let me show you another verb because Julie's question was super, super good. That choosing our pretérito versus imperfecto will be driven by what the action of that verb is. Let me take a different verb. Let me take a verb like ver, to see. Okay. Veo mucha gente aquí. I see lots of people here. And that's in the here and now. That's presente. But if I say I saw, is that action event driven Or is it an over and over again repeated action? Uh, what is that? If we're talking regular chit chat and you say, I saw, is that an event or is that an over and over repeated kind of activity?
Over
I
and
would
over.
say it's imperfecto.
Well, mm, I saw, and then you may tell what you saw, but if I saw that action of I saw, is that a once and done, or is that a many, many, many times? Is it like I used to see?
No.
Okay, let's take a look at both the paths for ver and see what's more likely. I can't tell you one conjugation is right 100% of the time and one is wrong 100% of the time. I can tell you what's perhaps more likely. Because of the nature of this action of sight, if it happened once, I saw, it's more likely to be preterito. So I saw something is more likely to be, right? What if I want to say, I saw lots of people at the park. Now we want to change it from I see lots of people at the park to I saw lots of people at the park. That action of using my sight and detecting visually what's out there, it's a one-time event. Okay, let's look at this. I saw versus I used to see. I used to see. Those need two different tenses. If I want to report what I saw, it's a one-time event. I need to choose pretérito. It'll be be. Vi a, perdón, vi a mucha gente en el parque. That's an event. But veía a mucha gente en el parque is quite different. It means I used to see a lot of people at the park. This indicates something that happened multiple times. And I'm talking about something that's probably, it was a habit in the past. But I don't really know how many times that happened. This is talking about a once and done, or I know exactly how many times, but probably once, right? Unless I insert an idea that tells me twice or three times exactly. It's a once and done. Yeah. Ver, the way we use it in conversation, because of the nature of that kind of action of seeing, is likely to be a pretérito. I can choose to put it in imperfecto, but then it talks about something that happened a lot, happened many times. All right. We have in English a structure that is used to, meaning it happened over and over, frequently. It happened frequently. Okay. Imperfecto has the job of description in the past, and it has the job of frequently, but I don't know how many times, but over and over again in the past. It has those jobs, imperfecto. Pretérito has the job of telling you once and done, or a certain number of times and done, but likely just once and done. Okay. So how do you know which tense to use? It depends. If I used to see dogs every morning, but I used to see dogs at 8 o'clock because that's the time when dog walkers are out. It's veía a muchas personas con perros a las 9. I used to see, or a las 8. I used to see people with their dogs at 9. That choosing veía tells somebody this happened over and over and over and over. Choosing vi a mucha gente en el parque a las 8 says this happened one time. The kind of action that ver talks about, you're probably likely to hear it more in preterito. Doesn't mean you'll never hear it in the other past tense, but it's because of that action. It's more likely with preterito. What percentage? It won't be like a 90 versus 10% like había. It won't be that high, but it's kind of a lot with preterito. Does that kind of start to help you a little bit, Julie? It won't, and Julie, this won't be totally satisfactory because not all verbs will be that way, right? Not all verbs indicate just by the nature of what the verb tells you might not lend themselves to, a 50-50 choice like that. Okay? But some verbs do. Ver kind of is predictable. You're likely. And but there is a purpose for having ver in imperfecto. And that's to tell you something happened a lot, a lot, a lot. Okay? Let me take another verb that might be easier for you to understand, like ver. Let's take another action. And this kind of is emphasizing we have to look at what's the action of the verb. And is there a verb that might it be more likely in preterito versus imperfecto? Well, we'll see. I'm going to get another verb up here. Actually, I'm going to take two verbs. Jugar. ¿Qué es jugar? ¿Cómo se dice jugar? What does that mean?
To play?
To play. And that's like games or sports. And then we're going to take a look also at tocar, which also means to play, but to play an instrument, right? Or it also means to touch. Ooh, it means to touch too. Ooh, okay. Let's look at the nature of what those actions are. Is there something about it that will scream like I'm more likely to need a preterito or I'm more likely to need an imperfecto? Okay, play. Uh, I want to say uh, the kids are playing. Oh, yeah, I want to say what kids are doing in the park right now. Kids are playing in the park. That's the job of presente, right? And this happens to be a UE stem change. It just is that way. So, los niños juegan en el parque. Okay, but if I want to say kids played in the park. Kids played in the park. Okay, in English, I've just got kids played in the park. Oh, uh, do we sometimes in English say kids were playing in the park? Do we say that too in English? Kids were playing? Okay. English might use played or were playing, right? Okay. If I say only kids played in the park, uh, and I just mean it happened on a certain day or at a certain time of the day, that will be the job of an event. Okay, because jugar is a very active verb, like ver is an active verb. Okay. Los niños jugaron en el parque. That tells me it happened, it's done. I might add something else to make it a little more obvious, like jugaron en el parque, jugaron en el parque a las 5. They played in the park at 5. I might choose to add some kind of a time-driven statement to it, maybe. Okay. But that choosing to say jugaron says it's over. It was an active event, playing is an active kind of verb. All right. It's very action driven, it's very event driven, and it's done. They played. They're gone. They're gone. The kids are gone now. Yeah. The message being driven by choosing to say jugaron says done and over. But if I want to say the kids were playing in the park, and now I'm going to describe more information about that, if I choose to go into description mode, you may hear it as los niños jugaban imperfecto en el parque. And if you choose to say it that way, people say, they're either now going to tell me more information, they're going to paint a picture of what this looked like as if I were watching a movie. Yeah. Or they might just be telling me they did this a lot. They were playing, or they used to play. These two expressions in English, were playing or used to play, they use imperfecto. If what you mean is one of those two ideas, you need jugaban. But when a listener hears jugaban, they expect you to paint the scene or tell me more about it. So, I might add more about it by saying, no, los niños jugaban en el parque cuando empezó a llover. Now, notice here is the meaning behind it. The kids were playing in the park. Whoop, when it started to rain. And that paints a more complete picture. It describes something that was going on for a long time. I don't really know when it started, but action in the park, action in the park. This stuff was all going on in the background. And now here comes a sudden weather event. It started to rain. That's an event. And it came in the middle of kids playing. They were playing before it started to rain. The kids were still playing. And wow, did the kids still keep playing? I don't know. Maybe I need to tell you more. Imperfecto often is attached to other interrupting things in the middle or more description. People often will be waiting to listen for more information about what else is going on when you are in imperfecto mode. Okay, so which is it more likely to hear jugaron or jugaban? Depends. If you're just saying what happened and boom, done, over with, preterite, event driven. So, Julie, here's an idea to think about. This is something somebody proposed, and it's helpful, maybe, for an English speaker. People choose to use preterite tense if they're relating what happened. Is it something I can write down? Like if I were writing everything that happened in my diary, I keep a diary and I write down everything that happened as an event during the day in that diary. If I can write it in my diary, that's a preterito. Did it happen as an event, a clear event that started and ended that day or that hour, and I could write it down in my diary for that day? That's preterito. But if it's describing or if it talks about what used to happen, meaning over and over again, then it has to live in that world of imperfecto. Yeah? Now, is that going to be easy for you to detect all the time? No, it won't be easy. As a beginner, it won't be easy. But when you hear it, no, when you hear somebody using pretérito, they're telling you, I can write it in my diary. This happened. It's done. When they choose to use imperfecto, they're either describing what something was like, saying it happened over and over again. It's one of those things. Yeah. To say there were a lot of people at the park is not an event I can write in my diary. Well, you can write it, but it's not an event. It's not a bullet point. Yeah. Events that happened in your diary are bullet point. Both. Okay. Here are the bullet points of my day. Fed the cats, cleaned the litter box, watered the plants, cleaned up the kitchen, cooked dinner. Those are bullet points of things that happened. But it was sunny, not a bullet point of really an event. It describes what it looked like. Yeah. You get that? Yeah? Okay. So the imperfecto will not give you the bullet points. They are descriptions, and they often have tagged on with them other information to more fully paint the scene of what everything that was going on, everything. Yeah? Okay. Is that an easy thing for an English speaker to figure out? No, it is not. But some things will be obvious. Some things will be obvious. Let's take a look at another kind of verb that you hear a lot or that people use a lot in everyday conversation. We're going to pick another verb. We're going to pick, I'm going to pick, ooh, and I have to go back to my tocar thing, but okay. Decir, to say, to tell. Okay. Uh, you want to say to somebody, ah, uh, I'm going to tell you the gossip. You want to tell your friend, ooh, I have things to dish on. Te digo, just presente, present. Te digo el chisme. I'm going to tell you this gossip. Te digo el chisme. But if I want to say, I told you the gossip. I told you the gossip. Is that something that clearly came out of my mouth that I could write down? Ooh, I told my neighbor all the dirt on the other neighbor. Uh, that action of told, is that clear? It started, I told it, and it's over. Is that clearly it happened and done? Well, but words coming out of my mouth. It's over and done.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you want to say things like, he told me to pay this bill today. I told her, check the mail, check your mail today. I told her, I told, he told, she told. Those words came out of your mouth and it's over with. It's not like saying, it was sunny. I told something, and how long did it take you to tell? 5 seconds? It's kind of it's over and done. The action of to tell, if we put it in the past, a lot of time it happens quickly. It happens quickly, and then it's over with. Okay? So you're more likely in everyday conversation, you're more likely to hear this as an event uh, type of tense. Okay? So pretérito is what you're probably more likely to hear this in everyday conversation. Okay? It is very irregular. So if I want to say I told, so I just need to give this to you because you'll never guess it. Where does a J come from for decir? It's one of the very problematic irregular past. But I told you, te dije el chisme. I told you the gossip. If I told you something, that action doesn't take like, uh, it happens fast. It happens fast and then it's done. It's an event. It's the job of pretérito. Okay? You're going to hear dije or dijo, he said or he told, right? The way to say he told me or she told me is me dijo. To me, he said. He said is the past of one person said this. Me dijo. Me dijo todo. Me dijo todo. He, or maybe it's a she, told me everything. Oop. Okay, that's the past. So just the nature of what that verb means, when you say something, it's over and done with quickly. Yeah, it's an event. It's likely to, you're likely to need to use it or to likely to hear it in preterito. It does exist in imperfecto, and it's very regular because imperfecto is a very regular tense, lots and lots of regulars. So ER verb, IR verb in this case, it's decía, okay? Decía, however, would mean I was saying, or I used to say, or tell. In just everyday chit chat, are you more likely to say, I said something, or I used to say?
I said,
I said. So, Andres, in case you're puzzling, I'm going to show you. Decía, if somebody says, como decía, as I was saying, that's not as frequent. Decía is used a lot. Decía. Uh, if somebody uses that, they are generally saying used to say or was saying. And that's okay. When might you hear? What context? Here's the context for decía, imperfecto. Mi mamá siempre me decía Here's the context you're likely to need decía. My mom always used to say to me, bum, 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 bum. My mom used to say to me, like, wash your hands, wash your hands, right? It's something like that. Grandpa used to say, don't eat candy all day. Yeah, used to. It has a place, but it doesn't live in the world of the chit chat I will use maybe with the neighbor next door all the time, okay? Uh, lávate las manos. Bien, okay. That decía, it exists, but it's to indicate that something happened a lot. Yeah, what somebody used to say a lot. Decía is going to say it happened over and over and over and over because that's one of the jobs. Imperfecto says over and over and over and over, or it describes and sets the scene. That's the job. So, decir, in everyday chit chat with the neighbor, with the shopkeeper, the preterite of it happened, boom, it's over, is more likely. And this decía, the imperfecto, has a job, but you're probably less likely to hear it in that. Less likely? Can I give you a percentage? Not really, but yeah, a lot. Okay, let me go back to my other screen because this is actually a, a good question. It's kind of a vast question. I digressed and I did not. We talked about jugar. We did not talk about tocar. Tocar is to play an instrument. Ah, to play an instrument. I might hear somebody, let's take tocar and make it, let's make it a preterite. Let's hear what it sounds like in preterite. Let's hear what it sounds like in imperfecto. In preterite, it's an AR verb. If I want to say he played or she played, I want to talk about somebody, not myself, somebody. AR verb. It'll be
Okay.
tocó, tocó, played. Okay, uh, played an instrument, right? And it can be conjugated for imperfecto. But now it means either used to play or was playing. Okay. So if somebody chooses to use preterite, they're telling you one time. Okay. Por ejemplo. Springsteen tocó anoche en el concierto. They're choosing tocó, a preterite, because it happened last night, anoche. It tells you once and over that it was an event. I could go home and write in my diary, wow, I saw Springsteen last night and he played on stage. And that Springsteen tocó anoche en el concierto. Okay. Bien. If I choose to use tocaba, it indicates, it gives a different feel. Por ejemplo, hijo mi hijo tocaba la guitarra en su banda. Mi hijo tocaba la guitarra en su banda. Now it carries this meaning. My kid, my son, he used to do this. And he did it a lot, not just last night, right? Not just an event, for it happened on this day, and I can write it down as a bullet point of things that happened to put in my diary, but it happened a lot, okay? He played all the time when he was in high school, yeah? Or he used to play with that group, yeah? Uh, is this a little bit clearer?
Mhm.
And if your response is only that much, that's okay. That's okay. But that's to show you that people choose one tense or another. They are giving you a feel for, can I write it down on a bullet point of it happened, it happened, it happened. I can write it down in my diary. This happened today. Or is it part of a bigger description or a repeated event? Imperfecto has certain jobs. Preterito has other jobs. Okay. Uh, English often needs more context or more descriptive information to give that same feeling. And we need more context in terms of talking about time or, pegging it to time. Yeah, often. Okay, a ver. So let's take a look at things I gave you on the screen. I gave you había. You're more likely to need había. You're more likely to need era for ser, moving from soy to era or from es to era. Now that one's a little bit flaky. You might hear it in preterite too. You might hear it in one of these as preterite, right? If somebody really talks about something, this is kind of a problematic one. But, generally, if I want to say he was handsome versus he is handsome, that's a description. And description lives in that era, in the imperfecto realm. Okay. So descriptions in the past will often use era. You will hear people use era a lot. And what they mean was something was, or I was, something was a certain way, right? They're telling you what something looked like or what qualities it had. Uh, you will often hear estaba. Estar exists in pretérito, but the nature again, ser and estar, like haber, are verbs of state. They don't talk about a boo or a really hard-hitting action like play or worked, right? I fixed something. Uh, it doesn't give you a one-time action feel, estar. So you're going to hear it a lot in the imperfecto. You're likely to hear that a lot. So we're talking about what you should recognize when people use past. You should recognize when they use era, they're telling you was. You should recognize when you hear estaba, that somebody was doing something or was in a location. Okay? Uh, this verb tener, more likely to hear it in tenía, imperfecto. Had, had. I have $10. I had $10. Uh, that's not, had is not really an event. Most of the time when we use had, you're going to hear it in that tenía form. You're more likely to hear it as tenía. Tenía will be used a lot. Remember that tener is used for a lot of idioms like tener hambre, tener calor, tener frío, to talk about how you felt if you were hot or cold. So to say I was hot or cold, that's not an event. It's describing a physical feeling. Tenía mucho frío esta mañana. I was really cold this morning because of the temperature. I'm describing how I was feeling. That's not an event, it's a description. Tenía mucho frío. I was really cold. Okay? These tener preterite forms, you're likely to hear only when what somebody really means is they got something, they received, they were on the receiving end of something. Okay? So I'm going to give you an example. If you hear somebody say, tuvo un hijo, they mean somebody gave birth to somebody. They gave birth to a child. Tuvo un hijo. She had a baby. Tuvo un bebé. But if what they really mean to say is, oh, wow, my grandma, she had 5 kids. That's not talking about her having given birth, but rather how many kids she had. That's not an event. It's how many kids she used to have. Mi abuela tenía 5 hijos. My grandma had in her family, as a description, 5 kids. That's the difference, right? This is very specific. It happened. You gave birth to a kid. Also, this can be used for got a pet. Tuvo un perro. Tuvo un perro means somebody got a dog. They acquired that dog. Uh, they got it from the neighbor, they got it from the shelter, wherever they got the dog. It means they actually took it into their home. Tuvo un perro, they got a dog. Oh, it happened and it's over. They took that dog in. But if I want to say, ooh, she always had pets, yeah? Or she had 2 dogs, and I'm just talking about the state of she had dogs in her household, not when she first brought them home, but she had dogs. Tenía mascotas. She had dogs. You're more likely to hear tener in chit chat more with tenía, way more likely. Okay? Because most of the time when we talk about, let's take that idea of our pets, most of the time we're talking about somebody had pets rather than the day they first got them. Yeah? The day they first got them is tuvo. That they had pets in general is tenía. Because it describes a state of being, what they had. Okay. Bien. Vale. Let's see if we can put this into practice a little bit. If this is only as murky as like one thin coating of mud, consider yourself like very normal. Yeah. But what has to happen is you really need to hear like lots and lots and lots of examples. And the more you hear that, it's like, oh, they're describing to me versus, oh, here's something that happened. Here's something that happened. That's preterito. But how something used to be, they're painting me a picture, or this happened a lot, that's the job of imperfecto. So let's take a look at some of your examples. I'm going to pull this up so that we can maybe get an idea of your examples and maybe create some other examples. So the thing I asked you to do was to look at these 3 verbs. Ser, estar, tener. Ser changing into era. Estar changing into estaba.
Carolyn,
Tener.
I'm only seeing a zoom on the screen. Is that just
Oh,
me?
perdón. I'm sorry. I thought it did not transfer over. Gracias. Thank you. Okay, mejor, better, yeah? Mejor, sí? Uh, and this is guided practice, meaning we're giving you a predictable way to make a change. And these are three super common verbs, ser, estar, tener. We use them all the time. If you hear anybody speak for 15 minutes about anything, you are likely to hear one, two, all three of these verbs in a 15-minute stretch of time. They're hard to avoid, these verbs, in everyday talk. So I've got some examples here. Mi nieto es un chico guapo. My grandkid, he is a good-looking kid. Yeah. But if I want to talk about what he used to be like, what he was like, I might need to switch to past. Como bebé, él era muy precioso. As a baby, he was very cute. Doesn't mean he's not cute anymore, but like in English, you say, well, he was cute. Yeah. And that he was cute is not an event, it was a state of being. It happened for a long time. I don't know how long. How long? I don't, was he cute? I don't know. He just was. Yeah. You're likely to hear era, right? Or if I describe something like plural, it might become something like this. Las nubes son blancas. Ayer las nubes eran grises. The clouds are white. Yesterday the clouds were gray. Uh, is there somebody who's got an example of present to past like that with ser? Okay, Julie, see.
I have that's a problem for me.
Okay.
Mi, mi hija es muy inteligente, pero cuando estaba, maybe, en la escuela primaria, era un alborotador.
Ah, bien.
Was it estaba or
Okay.
the second one, estaba or era?
Cuando estaba, let's pop
Cuando
that
estaba
example on the
en la escuela.
screen. When she was in grade school, was that right, Julie?
Right.
Okay. When my kid was in grade school, and cuando mi hija estaba
Okay.
en la primaria. And that's, well, it's a location, yeah, but it's a state too. Yeah. Yeah. Uh, Cuando estaba en la primaria, uh, when she was in elementary school. Yeah. Yes, sí, correcto.
That's correct. Okay.
That is not, she wasn't there once,
To
but
time, that
but
time.
what you're meaning is she used to be in elementary school, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
Can we substitute the idea of she used to be in elementary school? Yes. Does that make sense? Yes. And that is a state she was in. It's like an age range. It's not an event.
Okay.
She was in elementary school a bunch of years, and estaba is absolutely right on. We need that estar. We can't use ser for that. We can't use ser for that, right? It's talking about a location and an age range, right? Right. Uh, let's bring tener into this. Let's bring tener into this, Julie. Um, I want to tag on to this, maybe the idea of I'm gonna convey the idea of she was about uh, I want to say she was 10 years old. She was 10 years old. Is that an event that she was 10 years old? Do you mean she had her 10th birthday, or do you mean she was 10 when this thing happened?
And yeah, she was
She was 10.
a state of being.
And that's a description. Age.
Yeah.
You're not saying she had her 10th birthday and this happened on her 10th birthday. That would be an event. But she was 10 years old. We use tener for that, right? So
Mhm.
we use tener for that. If I say she was, that's a description. I need to say that how she was 10 years old. Ella. We
DNA.
use tener with the number and then
And
the
yeah.
Ella
Tenía.
tenía 10 años. That's a description. It's a state she was in. Okay, she was in it for a year, but a long time. Yeah. Tenía 10 años. It's description. Telling age in the past, unless you're talking about somebody had a birthday on this day and there was a party and they did something special, unless you're in that thing. We talk a lot more about when my daughter was 10, when my brother was 5. Those are all descriptions. They're going to fall into that tener in the tenía category. Bien? Okay? Make sense?
Yep.
Okay, let me go back to Julie, your description here. Let me go back to your description. I want to say, quiero decir, por ejemplo, my kid was smart. My kid was smart.
Mi
Okay.
hija era muy inteligente.
Mi hija, or hijo, if it's a boy, era muy inteligente. Era muy inteligente. That's a description, right? What she used to be like. It doesn't have a beginning and an end. You don't write as a bullet point of here are all the things that happened to me today. My kid was smart. That's not an event. It's describing what she was like. Era muy inteligente. Okay? Era muy inteligente. So, era, you're going to hear a lot. You're going to hear a lot because we describe people in the past and we describe things in the past a lot. Yeah? And those descriptions don't have an easy beginning and an end. Yeah. If you want to say, I'm going to give you one more example before I take more examples from you. If I want to say, my car was blue, my first car was blue. Did the blue happen? No, the blue didn't happen. It didn't happen, right? My first car was blue. Uh, mi primer, mi primer carro
Era.
era azul. Yeah? It's a description. It's got to be era. It's a description. So descriptive things, yeah, that's where they go. Okay, bien. Sus ejemplos, your examples. Who's got more examples of plugging in a past idea
I
off of
do.
these 3 verbs? Okay, bueno, Andrés.
Do you want the present tense first or the past tense?
Lo que quieras, whatever you want.
Mi perro no es muy energético.
Ah, my dog's
No,
not very peppy. Yeah.
lazy. Cuando era joven, mi perro era muy energético.
Perfecto. Perfecto. ¿Qué ejemplo perfecto? What a perfect example. And this is something yeah. Mi perro, no es muy energético. He doesn't have a lot of pep anymore. Yeah, I've got some pets like that too. Uh, Cuando era joven, when he was a young puppy, when he was a youngster. And was a youngster is not an event I can write as it happened this day. It's describing him. Uh, Era muy energético. Perfecto. You're describing him. ¿Sí? ¿Sí? Bien. Bien. Ok. Excelente. Excelente. And this is what you're likely to hear. That era is super likely. Okay. Bien. Algo más. Otro ejemplo. Another example using ser or tener or estar in the past. Bien, Marcos. And you'll have to take yourself off of mute.
On this one, I kind of missed the point of doing both present and past.
That's
So,
okay. No importa. It doesn't matter.
cuando era niño, me gustaba jugar en la calle.
Ah, bien.
Jugar fútbol en la calle.
Me gusta tu ejemplo. I like your example. We're going to use your example and we're going to riff off of that. We're going to use it first. Okay. Otra vez. Repite, por favor. Please repeat so that
Cuando era niño,
cuando era niño,
me gustaba jugar en la calle.
me gustaba jugar al, al,
Fútbol.
al fútbol en la calle. Muy típico. Here's a really typical thing. See, when I was a kid, I used to play soccer in the street, or maybe American football, fútbol americano, lo que sea, whatever it might be. Okay, bien. Cuando era niño, description, right? I don't say today I was a kid and write it in my diary. No, it's describing me. When I used to be a kid, when I was a kid, me gustaba jugar. This already tells me that you did this how many times, Marcos?
Billions.
Billions. Too many to count. All the time. A lot. Me gustaba says happened a lot, right? I liked. Could you substitute the idea in English of I used to like playing this sport? Yes, you could. And would somebody totally understand that? Yes, it would make total sense. Okay, let's look at gustar for a minute because this is something you will hear a lot. Well, you will hear frequently. Gustar, let's take the case, the curious case of gustar. Gustar, you're going to hear in the past either as an event, gustó, or as a habit, gustaba. Gustaba says habit over and over. Gustó says once. So let's think about this. Bien. Marcos was totally in the right way of expressing this. Me gustaba jugar al fútbol en la calle because he's talking about something that happened over and over. But now I'm walking up to however old he may have been, Marcos, and saying, Marcos walked out of the theater after seeing for the first time the very first Star Wars movie. The very first Star Wars movie, right? And if he walked out of the theater and I wanted to find out, hey, was this any good? Should I buy a ticket? Did you like it? If Marcos just walked out, if he just walked out of the theater and I asked for his reaction, he would not say me gustaba. He would say
Do. Me
me
gustó.
gustó. Me gustó Star Wars muchísimo. And that indicates his reaction. Me gustó says, this is how I felt about it. After doing this, yeah, this is what he did over and over. This is his reaction out of walking out of the theater. It's his reaction. I liked it. Right? Because it's a gut reaction, right? After doing something. Or another example where you will hear me gustó a lot is after finishing a meal, right? You ordered something like new, exotic, kind of different, you're visiting another country. Yeah. You've never had a tamale before, an honest to God tamale. And you ordered tamales. And me gustaron. Wow, I liked those. Means my reaction because I tasted those. Yeah. My reaction after doing something that many times. And now my camera took too many. Bien. Okay. Bien. Is that a
Yeah.
little better? Is
See,
it only slightly murky as verse to like just thick as mud? Yeah. Okay. But see, every action is a different kind of, every action, every verb talks about an action, and what that activity is will drive which tense it lends itself more. And sometimes they're just really, they'll be a 50-50 split. You may hear it used as much in imperfecto as you do with uh, preterito. Yeah. It really depends on the action of that verb. But what your goal is to, when you hear that information, to process, is this an event versus is it a description or over and over and over again? Okay, bien, bien, okay, vale. I wanted to do one thing. We will leave that for next week. Uh, Actually, what I will give to you though, you know what? I will make this part of your assignment. I am going to have you listen to a like ridiculously easy thing. This is a ridiculously easy video. And she just talks about going to the beach and stuff she needs for the beach. Yeah. And she's going to use a really limited number of verbs. Very, very limited. It's very slow, very slow. I want you to think about, listen to that video and think about how would I tell that if I made it into the past? You're going to hear a lot of ser, haber, right? She's going to use I a lot. Yeah. Ser, estar, and haber. And I think she uses gustar maybe a few times. A few times. I want you to see how much of that you can say, if I were to take this and to relate it as like something in the past, how would I do that? And don't like write down every single sentence she says word for word, but just kind of isolate some verbs and they'll be easy to pick out because she uses a very limited number of verbs. Okay? Bien?
Yeah.
Ale?
Mhm.
Okay. Perfecto. So that's going to be, and we'll walk through what that would be when we get back to class. And then you will have a listening video that will just be about not any grammar thing in particular, but just for listening for the story. Yeah, listening for the story. And I haven't quite decided yet if it's going to be a story that will mix in the past or there's one that's more of a seasonal related thing. So I have to evaluate which one will be maybe a little more fun for you to do. Okay, bien?
Bien.
¿Todo bien? ¿Todo bien?
yes.
Excelente, excelente. Okay, gracias, gracias. Thank you so much. Muchísimas gracias. I'm sure your days are getting a little bit fuller as we move into the holiday season for many people. So I'm going to try to keep homework to a minimum. Okay. Bien, bien.
Yeah.
Okay. Fantástico. Muchísimas gracias por participar. Thank you so much for participating. We'll see how that will, pasting will raise its head. It won't be its ugly head anymore. It will, start to fit in a little bit better. Okay, todo bien, todo bien. Nos vemos la semana que viene. We'll see you guys next week.
Absolutely.
¿Sí? Bien, perfecto. Hasta